This is UMAR AHMED for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Week 3 of Fight Camp. Also got a show in the US. Run me through both, Eddie.
Double fight week. Of course, we're here at Fight Camp for week 3. Well done on your return. Dab hand at cricket. I've seen on the old footage. Yes. You can play a little
got a bit of a paste in.
Tough gig in here, isn't it, Umar? Do you know what I mean? Nice little hotel, bit of grub, cricket at night, bit of sun during the day. Congratulations, mate. And you know, busy week for us, of course. This one for me, or even though you said tough sell last week, appreciate that. Everyone's put that in my comments on Twitter all week, so at least they watched the interview. For me, top to bottom, this is the best of the 3 weeks so far. I think next week, obviously, is on another level, but this week, for me, could be a real cracker. Couple that with a bit of thunder and lightning, bit of rain as well. It's going to be a lively night. Starts with John Dock against Anthony Fox. Great fight. Everybody who knows boxing, Anthony Fox got robbed on the road a couple of times as that guy who went and fought everyone. Came back, beat Morgan Jones, beat Dwayne Sinclair in his last fight as well. It's a massive step up for John Doherty, who's looked devastating so far. Just comes to lay people out cold, to be honest with you. But he's got to be a little bit more cute against Anthony Fox. Kieran Conway against Nav Mansouri, great fight. Nav Mansouri, bang up for this. The women's fight that a lot of people are talking about is Shannon Courtenay against Rachel Ball. I believe when I made this fight, Rachel Ball was a 6-1 outsider. When I looked last night, she's nearly an even money shot in this fight with Shannon Courtenay. She's fit as a fiddle. She's got a huge height advantage on Shannon Courtenay. She's very experienced as well, particularly over longer distance fights as well. Shannon, tough, can punch, but very inexperienced in the pro game. This is a massive step up. And like the John Doherty fight, this is a fight that was supposed to come in 2 fights' time. So I would have given Shannon another fight or 2 fights before Rachel Ball. But we're in that environment now. She's stepping up. And if she's good enough, she'll win the fight. But it's going to be all action for 8 rounds. It's going to be a great fight. Zelfa Barrett against Eric Donovan. Great fight. I mean, I'm sure you've spoke to Eric Donovan. What a talker.
Good talker, yeah.
What a talker. But also, not deluded. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, his achievements as an amateur, I think he was 6-time national amateur champion in Ireland. 2-time European medalist as well. Great boxing pedigree, great boxing IQ, and really believes he can beat Zelfa Barrett. Pressure on Zelfa Barrett. Obviously, we signed him recently, talking about him being a big star coming out of Manchester. He's got to be very careful in this fight. You know, you saw him lose to a southpaw in Ronnie Clark. Massive opportunity for Eric Donovan, and I think that it's going to be a great fight. Main event, I think we're going to get an absolute cracker. Wellborn against Cash. Cash coming off a fight of the year contender against Jack Cullen. Wellborn, if he's up for it, which I believe he is, then you are going to get an absolute war. And if Wellborn can take him into deep waters, coming into 7, 8, 9 rounds, he thinks he's got a real chance. He's got to be careful because Felix Cash starts like a train, always. I just saw him out there, he's like carved out of stone as well, Felix Cash. But that's our card on Friday night. I think it's an absolute banger, 7 PM Sky Sports. And then Saturday night, live on DAZN, we go with the undisputed welterweight championship, Cecilia Brackhouse against Jessica McCaskill. We go Madrimov against Walker for final eliminator for the WBA world title. Also Shakram Giasov, Mark Castro makes his debut, Nikita Ababi and Raymond Ford. That fight is on the streets of Tulsa, in amongst the financial district. It's going to look unbelievable.
Everything been okay with that?
Yeah. So far, actually, the fighters were pre-tested. They passed those tests. On arrival, they were tested yesterday. They get their results this morning, the fighters. So, listen, we've done everything we can. Over there, I mean, you know how stringent it is around here. Over there, it's 5 times worse. So we've done everything we can. We've followed all the guidelines. And yeah, big week for us. Big week for us. US return and the final sort of normal week of Fight Camp.
I see on Kevin Rooney's Instagram, on the airport, they have the Matchroom.
Yeah, logo, because it's a big deal for Tulsa. You know, they've got an international TV event in their city. In a city that, you know, like many in America, has been struggling. It's an opportunity for them to come out and say, we're back in business. So they've welcomed us with open arms. Studio shows are shit. There's no way around it. So I'm not doing them, right? And I don't want to just do a soulish show that the viewers are looking at going, this is boring. So we're trying to push the boundaries again in Tulsa, and it's going to look spectacular. We hope we get a great card. On Fight Camp, we know that always looks spectacular. This week's going to be a little bit different because we do have the threat of thunderstorms and rain, which is not ideal.
Okay, let's move on to some news last night. Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell. Apparently a deal's been reached, but Oscar De La Hoya doesn't seem to think so.
Well, it's never reached till the contract's been signed. So obviously he tweeted last night saying the contract is not signed yet, or something like that. Correct. He's right. We agreed a deal about 5 or 10 minutes before purse bids yesterday, and that deal gives us the opportunity to stage the fight in the UK or the US, but also is looking at the ongoing issue of live gates. So we need, to run that event at the numbers that we've been discussing with both fighters, we need a live gate. So that's why we've penciled that fight towards the end of November. We believe we'll get live gates. Both fighters are happy to do that fight in the US or in the UK. We have those numbers in place. We're now proceeding to contract, and we'll see if we get it over the line. But, we asked for a 7-day extension, and I believe that will give us enough time to finalise the contracts.
Winner becomes mandatory for Devin Haney
Yes.
as well. What's going on with Devin Haney?
He's fighting on October the 3rd.
Okay.
In the US.
Opponent-wise?
We're talking to Gamboa. Obviously, you saw Fortuna as well, fell out of the fight with Linares. So he's an option as well. But, one of those guys is most likely for Devin Haney on October the 3rd.
So no tick-overs for Devin then, really?
No. Look, Devin Haney is in a position where he wants the big fights and the big tests, but he's coming off a year layoff with a shoulder up. So normally you'd take an easier fight. That doesn't exist right now. And you know what? He's got his head around that. He said, you know what? Give me a real fight. And Fortuna and Gamboa are real fights for Devin Haney. So, we'll have to see.
Obviously, if Devin comes through that, the winner of
Oh,
Ryan
massive.
and Luke.
Yeah, that's a huge fight. Look, fair play to Ryan Garcia because he's putting it on the line. Luke Campbell has a couple of defeats on his record, but he believes he can beat Ryan Garcia, and I believe he'll beat him as well. But Ryan Garcia, if he loses to Luke Campbell, has thrown away Haney, Tank, Lopez, Lomachenko, all these big, massive fights in the US. So, lot to play for in that fight.
Bacoli's obviously out of your pay-per-view show. What's going on with Fabio Wardley? Could he be on that show?
Yeah, Wardley we're in discussions with to fight. There's also another heavyweight fight which we're planning at the moment. Martin Bacoli, we tried to get. I wanted to get him a proper fight, and we just couldn't get the proper fight. So in the end, I said let's just reschedule the Kuzmin fight. Kuzmin's father unfortunately suffered an illness, and I'd rather just reschedule that fight. I know it's disappointing for Bacoli because you have to wait another 4 weeks or whatever it is, but I would rather make a meaningful fight for Martin Bacoli than put him in a fight that, quite frankly, doesn't do anything for him. I think he's had those fights and now he needs a serious test.
The other heavyweight fight, what kind of level? English level, British level?
It's an international fight with, I won't say too much, but it's we're trying to work on the elite exemption at the moment in terms of the quarantine. So, yeah, it's a fight that I think people will really enjoy and will raise some eyebrows because it's a big step up for a certain individual.
Interesting. What's going on with the likes of Joseph Parker, Gassiev?
So Parker is due to fight in New Zealand, which is a project we're working on at the moment. Would be our first ever show in New Zealand, in that region even, with David Higgins as well. Great fight that we're planning for him out there. Looks like October for that fight, just finalising all the details. And yeah, it would be a major coup for us to get that over the line.
Right, let's go back to our last interview after the show, where I said about the tough sell.
Oh yeah, cheers.
So you mentioned doing Fury White now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mean here, as in fight camp? Is that
Not
what you
necessarily,
meant?
no. I mean, I saw Frank's comments where he said, if Wilder's not ready this year, we're not, then he loses out. Well, if that's the case, then he's saying Fury wants to fight this year. Well, then he should just fight his mandatory, and we'll push the WBC to make sure he fights his mandatory if he can't fight Deontay Wilder. That's my comments. So,
But obviously Wilder's side will say they've got a contract in place.
yeah, but why is Frank saying, if he don't want the fight, then we're not fighting him next year? So there's obviously an issue. And the issue probably is they can't get the money together because of no gate. And I understand that, by the way, it's not a criticism. We've got the same problem with some of our fights. But I'm saying that White against Fury does 1.5 million pay-per-view buys plus. So I think you could run that fight in December. All subject to the... By the way, I think Alexander Povetkin's probably watching these interviews going, keep writing me off, mate. I'm going to chin him next week. So there's so much that can happen.
Where would you stage that though, Fury White?
Where you want. Behind closed doors, on a yacht somewhere, in the Middle East, at the O2. You have to be able at the moment to think outside the box in terms of where you're going. Because right now we thought we'd have live crowds in September. Not going to happen. We thought we'd got a good chance of live crowds in October. Maybe some kind of capacity. November, better chance. December, blimey, we hope so, you know. But you have to think outside the box, and there are going to be certain regions opening up for business before others. So that fight can take place anywhere. It's a huge fight.
I think people misunderstood you when you said here. I think you meant the UK.
You can do it in the UK.
People thought you wanted to do Fury White in your garden.
I'll do it in the garden. I mean,
Tyson's not going to fight there, surely, is he?
Tyson will fight anywhere. He's a fighting man. He'll fight anywhere.
I know, but he's...
If the money's right, he'll fight anywhere.
Yeah, but
it's not going to turn around going...
amounts, aren't you?
But it generates ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, if that does 1.5 million pay-per-view buys at 20 quid, even 25, might even put a cheeky fiver on top of that one. It's huge money. Plus your income from ESPN in America, plus your international TV. It's huge money. So he's got to fight him sooner or later.
I don't know if ESPN would be happy about that though.
Well, they wouldn't have a choice. They've got a contract with Tyson Fury. So
no, but they wouldn't be happy about him fighting on a UK time zone, and they're paying that.
I think they'll be over the moon, because what you don't know is college football is just evaporated right now. So actually, ESPN want afternoon content.
Okay.
So even better for them.
But
Didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't know.
Okay.
But could you really imagine Tyson Fury fighting in your garden?
That's up to him. I'm not. You know, it's not. He's welcome to. Do you know what I mean? But I think every fighter right now, tell me in boxing, a better spectacle or a better place to fight from what you've seen so far than Fight Camp.
No, as an event.
Yes. It's the best one. In fact, across all sport, I think this is the best creation we've seen post-lockdown, right? So, all right, okay, we won't do it here, we'll do it in a studio. There you go, I'd rather do it at Fight Camp. So,
no, I'm not saying do it in a studio, but because he's just headlining MGM, highest grossing ticket heavyweight event ever in Las Vegas, I'm just thinking, is it realistic that he's going to... Because he was having digs at Diddy.
Yeah, but if you can't... Yeah, by the way, it hasn't got to be Fight Camp. If you want to do it, it's fine. But if you can't go into venues, if you can't drive crowds, you've got to box somewhere. So if you're going to box behind closed doors, these are the options open to you.
Would you do Fury Joshua behind closed doors?
Yes, if we had to. And if both fighters wanted to do it, and if the money was right for both guys, of course. Listen, Joshua's got a similar position with Pulev. You know, right now, we're trying to drive a crowd to that fight. If we can't, he'll have to do that fight behind closed doors, and he's willing to do so.
Just a couple of more things, Eddie. Spence Garcia pay-per-view announced. Do you think that'll do well?
I think they've got a big problem at that price point across all these pay-per-views. I mean, the Charlo card is decent. It's going to bomb on its arse on the pay-per-view. Tank is a big draw. You know what I mean? And I like the fight with Leo Santa Cruz. I think that could do okay. Spence against Garcia, it's a good, solid fight. But I don't, you know, when you keep going to people in this environment going $70, $80, $90, cough up, and you've got the unemployment rate that you see in America right now, I don't know.
One more before I let you go. Billy Joe and Charlo having
words
on as well.
He messaged me, Billy Joe, saying, get me the Charlo fight. Obviously, he's fighting on October 24th, so that fight wouldn't be till next year, but listen, love to try and make that fight for Billy Joe. We've got to land him a big fight, see what happens with Canelo, and obviously the Callum Smith fight as well.
All right, I know you've got to film Double Trouble now. That's going on, isn't it?
Yeah, terrible, absolutely terrible.
All right, thank you, Eddie.
Cheers, mate.